עוד לא האידיוט הזה, הוא עוד מעט יראה, זה עוד מעט יקרה. על קו המים יושב לו האידיוט הזה, עיניים קצת פקוחות, שלא יקרה. ובינתיים דלקים קטנים מחממים אותו, מעצבנים אותו, לטובתו. והידיים תופסות דבר שיש בו טוב, כשהוא פוגש את הרחוב. הוא לא אוהב שטוב ושכולם שמחים, שהפנים שלו בשקט נשרפים. הוא עיוור לראות כשמשהו שונה, שהעולם חדש, שהעולם יפה. קו המים יושב לו החמוד הזה, הוא לא מודאג עכשיו, ובטח לא יהיה. על קו המים שוכב לו החמוד הזה, מוריד את הבגדים וכלום לא משנה. הוא לא אוהב שטוב ושכולם שמחים, שהפנים שלו בשקט נשרפים.
The AIPAC Policy Conference has many traditions, politics, passion, and people. Lots and lots of people. One of AIPAC's most treasured traditions is our sense of community. A welcoming atmosphere that embraces our differences and celebrates our AIPAC family. AIPAC's Policy Conference gives all of us the chance to make new friends and strengthen existing relationships. So remember, continue the tradition. Be sure to treat all of our speakers and fellow delegates as guests in our home.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome host of the Israeli Innovation Showcase, Brian Abrahams.
Thank you. Good morning, Policy Conference. All right, for those of you who got up early, ate breakfast already, made your way over here, you're going to get to see one of the coolest pieces of content we have at the entire conference. So our next segment of the Innovation Showcase is a classic example of Israeli chutzpah, or nerve. What other people in the world think that they are actually going to reinvent the wheel and then go about doing it? Please join me in welcoming Daniel Burrell and Dror Cohen of Softwheel.
Hello, Brian. Morning.
Gentlemen, welcome to the Policy Conference.
Thank you.
All right, let's go right to it. Where did this idea of reinventing the wheel come from?
Well, it's actually a result of a mistake. I wish I could take credit, but it just happened as a mistake. It all happened a few years ago in 2011 when a good friend of mine, a farmer from the south of Israel, Gili, broke his pelvis, and he was confined to a wheelchair for about 6 months, and he found that the ride on a wheelchair, both off and on road, is excruciating. So, being the creative soul that he is, he tried to fix that. He thought, how can it be better?
So, Dror, you have been confined to a wheelchair for how long?
Well, I'm going to be 48 at the end of the month, so 24 years in the other life, 24 years in a wheelchair.
You've been in a wheelchair half your life.
Yes.
And how did you come to be confined to a wheelchair?
Well, at that time I was I was a pilot in the Air Force, in the Israeli Air Force. I flew Skyhawks and F-16s, and I was an instructor in the cadet school in Hatzerim. I had to go fly air flights in other bays. So they came and took me and some other pilots, and unfortunately we slept in the car, and the driver also fell asleep, and the car rolled over. I was thrown out on my back, broke it, and you see the result actually.
So I assume as a former Israel Air Force fighter pilot, you're a pretty active guy, even in a wheelchair. What are the limitations? What is a conventional wheelchair like when you're very active in it?
Well, as an active wheelchair user, I encounter many difficulties sometimes, and along the way I'm trying to figure out how to make my life better for myself, riding it, and for other people. So like if I'm going down curves, steps, some gravel, I hurt my back, in the end of the day, and that's how I got to Softwheel, to try to solve the problem.
Okay, so let's get back to Gili Wolf, who's confined to a wheelchair only for 6 months, and he wants to make it a better thing. So what happens?
So he's a farmer from the south of Israel, near the Gaza Strip. So he took the air cushions from his John Deere tractor and tried to put it inside of the frame of the wheelchair. It didn't really work. But it did caught the eye of one of Israel's most famous incubator. It's a governmental program where you get government funds for innovation. So soon after, we were set on with a government grant to develop suspension for a wheelchair. And so we did for about a year.
How'd it go?
Not that well, actually.
Okay.
Suspension in its core is very limited. It hasn't evolved in the past 90 years. So no matter what we try to do, how we try to innovate, putting suspension inside of the frame of the wheelchair, it simply didn't do well enough. It didn't work. So one day the guys came in and we got the talk.
The talk?
Yeah, the talk. Basically, it's either we make a breakthrough or they close down the company. So we set up in a room, we took a wheelchair and we just stared at him. And Brian, it's a wheelchair. It's wheels and chair. Wheels and chair.
Even I understand that. Okay.
Yeah, that's, So we couldn't put it in the chair. So we said, okay, nowhere else. Let's put it in the wheel. And so we were so excited putting it in the wheel, we made a small mistake, a great small mistake. We forgot to do our homework. We were so excited, we didn't research that in-wheel suspension. And if we were to do that, we would have found out people have been trying to do that for about 200 years and failing time over time again.
You guys never heard of Google?
Who? Sorry. And so 12 months later, we had the first ever in-wheel suspension for wheelchairs. We didn't know, you know, so we just kept.
So no one told you it was impossible, so you went ahead and did it.
Yeah, we don't believe in impossible.
All right.
We just did it.
So here this is a soft wheel. Let's hold this up so we can see this.
Yeah, so this is a soft wheel. As you see, it's round and it's a wheel.
Okay.
It doesn't have spoke. And all the magic happens inside. Every vehicle is connected through here, through the hub.
Okay.
Any kind of vehicle. What happens is that this hub, as opposed to any other wheel, moves. It can move freely within the diameter of the wheel.
So the wheel stays rigid, but the center moves within it?
Exactly.
Okay.
And that small movement is so efficient that it can absorb all the impact, all that energy from the road and not transfer it to the rider's body or the chassis. It is a breakthrough in terms of how you look at suspension because it is selective. When you don't need it, it does not work. It is like any other rigid wheel. Only when needed will it spring into action and make those movements.
So if there's a bump, if you hit a curb or something?
Exactly. If you see any obstacle, you know, even today when we try to be more and more accessible towards wheelchairs, it is still a challenge to go out and about on a wheelchair. And that actually provides wheelchair riders with so much more freedom to go wherever they want.
So, Dror, tell me, how has soft wheel changed your life? So this is a wheelchair equipped with soft wheels. Can we get a look at this?
Yeah.
So these are the actual soft wheel wheels on a wheelchair.
Yep. You see, they have suspension inside them. And actually, for me, it's all about freedom. You know, my name, Dror, that means a sparrow. So that means like I'm a free bird. So for me, going wherever I want is something really important. If I see a road and I have a big ramp, I don't want to go like 30 meters. I want to go wherever I want and to have the freedom to do it. So once I encounter gravel, big breaks, or everything, you know, for me to come back and sleep with a good back and not aching is important. And I want to share it with all the people that do use wheelchairs, and I'm happy to do it.
So can you demonstrate for us?
Yeah, you know what? There's maybe some steps.
Stairs?
You think so?
Have you seen the movie Naked Gun?
No, but I saw Top Gun.
You live Top Gun.
All right.
Any final words? Anyone in Israel you want me to call?
Wow, you sure? All right. I'll give it a try. I don't know. All right. First one is difficult. I made it. So it's all right. Thank you. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dror Cohn.
Isn't he amazing?
Unbelievable.
Amazing.
So are these actually available on the market?
Actually, yes. We've been selling them worldwide. They're actually even here available in the US. We've seen tremendous demand beyond our wildest dream. And you know, Brian, we come from Israel, and at Softwheel, we are all veterans. And veterans are dear to us. Thank you. So the first thing we've done entering the American market is that I'm proud to say that today that for the past 6 months we were able to bring those wheelchairs to over 100 veterans in the US alone. Yeah.
So are your products being used, is the software being used beyond wheelchairs?
Actually, that's a good question. There's a cool story behind it. I remember one day we were so focused on the wheelchair. You know, for startup, focus is everything. And we didn't think about anything else. And I came back from jogging outside, and I had a thought. So I went to the guys and said, will our technology work on any other wheel? And they said, yes. I said, no, I mean, any wheel. And they said, yeah, of course. I said, why didn't you say that before? I said, yeah, you never asked. So we started developing different things. For example, we are now developing this for bicycles. And we actually have one here to show you.
You have, okay.
Exactly.
Wow.
Do you want to go for a ride?
I'm good. Show it to me, though. Tell me briefly about this.
Okay, so this
These
is
are
our
the soft wheel wheels. Can we
those are
give it a
soft wheel
shot?
wheels, and this is our clearest vision as to the future of urban transportation. You know, in the future, there will be no more cars inside the city. So how do you bridge this last mile gap? And this is the perfect solution. These are bike sharing systems which are electric.
So there's no air in the tire, essentially, because the cushioning is inside the wheel.
Exactly.
So no more flat tires.
No more flat
So that's
tires.
going to revolutionize bicycles.
Exactly.
Wow. And what else? Anything else besides bicycles?
Other than bicycles, well, there's something but it's a little bit hush-hush. Can we?
It'll just be between us and our close friends.
Just us and a few friends, okay.
We're all signing NDAs on the way out.
Okay,
So tell us about
it. We decided that, the best way to revolutionize the world is by revolutionizing transportation. So we started from a wheelchair, went to a bicycle, passed, by the way, through some landing gears, and now we want to, reveal it here for the first time at AIPAC, our clearest vision as to the future of automotives.
Was that the picture you brought this morning?
Yes, can we put it on?
Lauren, can we put the picture up?
This is the Enduro.
Wow.
It's a brand new era in automotive.
So you're going to put this into cars?
Yes, sir.
And that means no more flat tires in cars?
No more flat tires, 20% more energy efficiency, better maneuverability, higher safety, lighter, better than ever.
Ladies and gentlemen, Daniel Burrell and Dor Cohn of Soft Wheel.
Thank you so much.
בשמיים, עננים לומדים לעוף, ואני מביט למעלה ורואה מטוס חטוף, ממשלות וגנרלים שחילקו לנו את הנוף, לשלהם ולשלנו, מתי נראה את הסוף? שמחתי לקראתו, פירמידות בעיניים ושלום במקטעתו, ואמרנו בוא נשלימה ונחיה כמו אחים, ואז הוא אמר קדימה, רק תצאו מהשטחים.
With our hearts to the east we're returning, and we learn to find peace in the journey, 'cause we know we're not alone. Every step that we take brings us closer to our home. The land of our forefathers, promised to all generations. We made a sacred covenant. בכל יום שיבוא, we know Hashem will hear our prayer. With our hearts to the east we're returning, and we learn to find peace in the journey, 'cause we know we're not alone. Every step that we take brings us closer to our home. A message hidden in the western wall, in a language that we don't recall. distant relatives in foreign lands. I will be there, searching for the touch of friendly hands. We will be there. We may not look alike, but someday we'll reunite. With our hearts to the east, we're returning, and we learn to find peace in the journey, 'cause we know we're not alone. Every step that we take brings us closer to our home. From Phoenix to Jerusalem, we're never far apart. Our common traditions keep us bonded at the heart. We study the Torah, we remember who we are. We're there for each other from the start. With our hearts to the east, we're returning, and we learn to find peace in the journey, 'cause we know we're not alone. Every step that we take brings us closer to our home. When we're naked of our defenses, I will be there. Free the footprints in the earth. We are left with just the other. I will be there. Mirroring one another's worth, and we are we are B'Tselem Elohim. With our hearts to the east, we're returning, and we learn to find peace in the journey, 'cause we know we're not alone. Every step that we take brings us closer to our home. Every step that we take brings us closer to our home. Bring us back to you, avec jamais le
Waited till I saw the sun. I don't know why I didn't come. I left you by the house of fun. Don't know why I didn't come. Don't know why I didn't come. When I saw the break, I wish that I could fly away.
Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. Our program will begin in 1 minute. take your seats. Our program will now begin. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome AIPAC National Board Member Alan Franco.
Good morning. Come on, good morning. There we go. One of the aspects of Policy Conference which I enjoy most is the combination of innovation coupled with tradition. As one of the members of AIPAC's Board of Directors, I've been asked to lead the group in one of its oldest traditions. Many of you may not realize that each of you are members of the 2016 AIPAC National Assembly by virtue of the fact that you are AIPAC members in good standing and attending Policy Conference. As National Assembly members, we are asking for your acclamation on two issues: the ratification of AIPAC's principles and the National Assembly's renomination of an AIPAC board member. First, the action principles. On the screens, all around, you see the recommended principles from the AIPAC National Council. Please review the principles at this time. All those in favor say aye. All opposed say nay. The ayes have it, and the AIPAC 2016 action principles are approved. In addition, as required by the AIPAC bylaws, the National Assembly also has the distinct responsibility of renominating an individual to the AIPAC Board of Directors. The board has made the recommendation of Erica Schupak-Newberg from Phoenix, Arizona. Once again, I'm asking for a vote from the National Assembly. All in favor say aye. All opposed say nay. The ayes have it, and Erica's renomination to the board has been approved. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of the program.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome AIPAC Vice Chief Executive Officer Richard Fishman.
Good morning. We have a very exciting day in store for you. In a few moments, we will welcome the first of 4 presidential candidates who have accepted our invitation to speak at this conference. In advance of these candidate appearances, it's important to remember some context. We gather in the midst of a hotly contested presidential primary process. Not for the first time, and certainly not for the last, some politicians are speaking disparagingly of each other and sometimes of the electorate. It's not our role to get involved in the shouting match. We don't drown out opposing views with noise, and we won't engage in angry rhetoric. The people in this room and this movement are committed to discourse characterized by reason and backed with action. As the bipartisan stewards of the U.S.-Israel relationship, it is our responsibility to hear all of the candidates' views of America's relationship with Israel and to maintain a dialogue with leaders and potential leaders of this nation. Our objective is simple: to ensure that we know every candidate running for federal office and that they know us. This year, as in years past, we've invited candidates with whom we may strongly disagree on substance, tactics, or tone. But invitation is not endorsement. No defense of any speaker, or particular view is implied. We believe in speaking truth to power. And even if we strongly take issue with their views, we have always registered our concerns with respect. In our view, Your participation in this conference comes with responsibility to be respectful, to be discerning, to listen. If you agree, clap. If you don't, if you disagree, don't. No policy position was ever improved by booing. No aspect of the U.S.-Israel relationship has been strengthened by disruption and catcalls. As we participate in this incredible display of American democracy, let us all remember why we're here and what we hope to accomplish. Let us act in that spirit, and in so doing, strengthen the bonds between the United States and Israel. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Share on the right. Okay.
Good morning, everybody. Like America, Israel is a thriving democracy with representation across the political spectrum. We're honored to be joined this morning by Israel's leader of the opposition, the chairman of the Zionist Union, the Labour Party. Please welcome Isaac Herzog. Good morning. Hi. Please. Thank you, Bougie. You've spoken to this audience before. I know how thrilled we all are to have you here, and you feel a real personal connection.
First of all, it's incredible to see this crowd. It's awesome, great. Thank you, AIPAC. Thank you for getting up so early in the morning and schlepping here. Yes, I have a very deep personal connection to AIPAC. My late uncle, Abba Iban, a legendary Israeli hero and diplomat. He was the founder of AIPAC in 1950, with the first director of AIPAC. His name was Cy Kennan. You have an incredible history. And my late father, Chaim Herzog, who was Israel's president, his last speech, his last public appearance and address was 2 weeks before he passed away in 1997 at the AIPAC conference here as well. So I'm very deeply connected. I think it's an incredible organization, and I think it's part of the cornerstone of the relationship between Israel and the United States that fosters and strengthens Israel. So thank you all very, very much for this.
It's great. Let's start with your new peace plan. You unveiled it a few weeks ago. Tell us about it.
Well, what I say is the following. Since I don't feel that an immediate peace agreement between us and the Palestinians is realistic. It's behind the corner. I think that we have to strive towards it. I think that we need to preserve the two-state solution and work towards it. But for that purpose, at this stage, when we're amidst a very painful terror wave, we should work to disengage from the Palestinians, complete the security fence around the settlement blocks, and also around Muslim villages around Jerusalem, move towards empowering the Palestinians behind the settlement, behind the fence, and of course convene an international regional security conference that will converge all the interests of all the moderate parties concerned in the region against terror, Iran and ISIL.
The Palestinian leadership has not been willing or ready to come back to the negotiating table. Do you see a means to get them to do so?
We should always be in direct eye contact with the ideal of moving towards the two-state solution, because that will preserve the Jewish nature of the Jewish state. However, as we see right now, when there is total lack of trust, there's a lot of animosity between the peoples and the leaders, there's hardly any relationship, we should do whatever it takes, first of all, to calm the situation by disengaging, by fighting terror with no mercy. Clearly, we're amidst a wave of terror which is also regional. The terror in Istanbul, the terror in Paris, the terror in Jerusalem, and the terror in Othniel, they're all the same terror. We should combat terror with no mercy and no ifs and no buts. But having said that, we should also try with diplomatic means and other means to calm down the situation, to disengage, and not lose sight with the final objective of reaching a two-state solution.
Mahmoud Abbas has been taking measures against Israel, attempting to go to the UN, going by the ICC, and so on. Just very briefly, is he part of the problem or part of the solution?
It's a major challenge, major problem that tackles Israel's foreign policy and Israel's standing amongst the nations. I think we should all agree here that we will not accept coercive resolutions that will try to impose solutions upon us that will undermine Israel's well-being and security. Therefore, we should object to any resolution by the international community that doesn't take into account those elements, and I believe that the international community never takes in a serious manner the security challenges of Israel. We should simply try and strive towards direct negotiations with no preconditions and try to get to them following calming down of the situation and trying to disengage and separate as much as possible.
Let's talk a little bit about Iran. There was a moment when the agreement was being negotiated when across the spectrum in Israel there was consensus against this deal that was taking shape. So now we're a few months on, the deal is being implemented. Where does that leave Israel now? How can Israel deal with this deal as it's unfolding?
Well, it combines two major issues. The nuclear situation, that's right now under a provisional arrangement that we need to see that it's implemented, that it takes a different course, as the administration believes. And of course, we have to follow the internal political developments in the Iranian public and the Iranian political scene, which are interesting at times. I mean, more moderate elements, let's say this way, more moderate elements have entered the system. On the other hand, however, Iran is at the forefront of pushing for terror, of trying to derail any arrangements between Israel and its neighbors, including an incredible coalition of moderate nations around us that is talking to Israel, that understand there's a convergence of security challenges together and interests. We should foster that coalition, that new configuration, that new development, which is remarkable, and we should make sure that part of what feeds up this coalition that we have around us is both easing up the situation and moving towards positive developments with the Palestinians on the one hand and security cooperation on the other.
Okay, so there are, changing relationships, but if you look at Israel's borders, you see all manner of challenges. You see ISIS on the rise, you see Hezbollah, you see Hamas, testing rockets and apparently digging tunnels again. How is Israel gearing up to grapple with these challenges?
These are major challenges. We've always had security challenges. When one learns our history, one knows. There were moments that it looked almost impossible, and yet we always overcame. We are a resilient nation. We will overcome this wave of terror. We know how to be strong. We're actually an incredible nation, incredible people. I think the people deserve a new course. The people deserve change. They need to see change. Despite the threats, one needs to deal both with the threats and also with the opportunities and use those opportunities.
The alliance with the United States is crucial to Israel's capacity to withstand the challenges.
Undoubtedly.
And we're now negotiating this security agreement, memorandum of understanding, a package of military aid, and so on. How vital is that assistance? And more broadly, how vital is this US-Israel security relationship, partnership?
Look, it's multi-layered. Number one, it's vital because it's important for Israel's security and it's important for Israel standing in the region. And clearly, it's an alliance with the strongest power in the world, a convergence of beliefs in democracy and values that we share, and we are, indeed, a unique island in the region. Secondly, and most importantly, I think that Israelis need to realize time and again, and this is a message I will take back from this incredible audience, that this relationship is something that supersedes internal political games and yawning and crying by all sorts of political partners and parties and complaining about the United States endlessly and shaming United States leadership. Forget that. This is a vital relationship. We need to strengthen it and be also grateful, not only always saying, oh, well, we deserve more. We should be also grateful for this relationship, and therefore we should work towards the memorandum, we should work towards the qualitative military edge, we should respect the support that we get, and we should also encourage the understanding of the unique interests of the United States in the region together with Israel.
One final question as we wrap up. What is your biggest concern for Israel? And what brings you the most hope for Israel going forward?
My biggest concern for Israel when we look at the future is, are we moving into a downturn because we will be losing at the end, God forbid, the unique Jewish democratic nature of the state. I don't want to be ever in any situation of deciding between Jewish and democratic. It doesn't work. It's a must. It's the equation. It's the only equation. For this, we have to disengage from the Palestinians and preserve an unequivocal, a clear definition of the nation state of the Jewish people. So that is the main challenge to deal with. And this requires us bold steps in realizing the challenge and disseminating it and taking steps towards solving it. The great hope I have is that we have a great nation. We have wonderful, unique human beings, Jews and non-Jews, from all spheres of life, people who came from over 100 nations and created an incredible homeland, a great success story. I believe in our peoples. I do. I believe in their revitalization, their ability at the end to meet any challenge, despite the mistakes that we make like any nation or any political system, and despite the fact that we are in a very tumultuous era, and in a region which is extremely complex, I believe that we can overcome if we are sophisticated, smart, and realistic as to our objectives.
Okay, what a wonderful, upbeat, and encouraging way to end. Ladies and gentlemen,
thank you all very, very much.
Isaac Herzog, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Where do we get out of here?
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome AIPAC Chairman of the Board, Bob Cohen.
How is history made? By chance, by luck, through bravery or action. Before there was such a thing as pro-Israel legislation, before there were position papers or parlor meetings or a policy conference, before there was AIPAC, before there was the State of Israel, one man changed the course of history.
My father was Eddie Jacobson. Although his name was Edward, no one ever called him that. He was Eddie to everyone. He was best known as being Harry Truman's partner and lifelong best friend. Daddy grew up in this Orthodox family. His parents were immigrants. Daddy was not well educated. He had to leave school at a very, very early age to help support the Jacobson family. Daddy went to work for a haberdashery store in Kansas City and went almost every day at noon to take the little packet of money to the bank. And the bank teller was a man by the name of Harry Truman. And this is where they met and became friends. The two men just clicked. They were brothers. Total respect for each other. They decided they would go into business together. And they started Truman Jacobson in the prime location directly across the street from the Hotel Mulebach.
This man with whom I was in business was Eddie Jacobson. He was one of the best buyers that ever I came across. And I was one of the best salesmen that he ever had to be associated with. One of the finest men I ever had anything to do with.
And all of a sudden, the bottom fell out. They had to declare bankruptcy. They remained very, very, very close friends always. Truman went into politics. Daddy traveled all of Kansas and western Missouri selling shirts and pajamas. When he was in town, they always had lunch together. They always enjoyed each other. I always called him Uncle Harry. Members of the organized Jewish community used to go to Truman. They knew what was going on. They wanted help. You have to see Dr. Chaim Weizmann when he comes to the States. And Truman said, I don't have to do anything. I'm President of the United States.
I gave orders that nobody was to come to see me and talk about the Palestine affair.
Frank Goldman, who was international president of B'nai B'rith, called one night, middle of the night, and said to Daddy, you've just got to go and talk to Truman. The situation is dire. So in the middle of the night, Daddy went down, got on an airplane, went to Washington, walked in to the office of Matt Conley. Matt was Truman's appointment secretary, and said, does the boss have any time to talk to me for a little while? And Matt said, yes, but Eddie, don't talk to him about Palestine.
Dr. Weizmann had been trying to get in all along, and I wouldn't let him in. But someone did come to see me, and he got in. His name was Eddie Jacobson. He came in, he stood around, didn't say very much, was as quiet as he could be. And I finally said, Eddie, what in the world's the matter with you? Have you at last come to get something? Well, because you never have asked me for anything since I've been in the White House and since we've been friends. And then he told me that he thought that I ought not to keep Dr. Weizmann out of the White House.
And then Daddy said, Dr. Chaim Weizmann has come to the United States to tell you about the situation in Palestine, and you won't see him. Harry, that's not like you. All he wants to do is talk to you. And about that time, Harry's chair turned around and he looked out at the rose garden, and pretty soon Daddy said he could see him drumming on his desk. And Daddy said to himself, I got him. And he pulled the chair around and said, okay, you bald-headed son of a bitch, I'll see him.
Dr. Weizmann is a wonderful man, one of the wisest people I think I ever met. He was a leader, one of the kind that you read about and seldom see. We had a long, long conversation, and he explained the situation from his viewpoint, and I listened to him very carefully. On my desk at the White House, I used to keep a quotation from Mark Twain, which said, always do right. This will gratify some people and astonish the rest.
As was his habit, the President's final decision gratified a nation and astonished the world.
The United States recognizes the provisional government as the de facto authority of the new state of Israel.
After the recognition and the State of Israel came into being, Daddy's role became even more important because there was no ambassador yet. Every bit of business that was done between Israel and the United States came through Eddie Jacobson. It came through our living room. It is important to speak truth to power. It is important to maintain your friendships. Daddy was in the hospital for a short period of time, and I went to call on him, and I stood next to his bed, and he said, "You know, I spend all this money going to and from Washington with all of this business I have to transact there for the new little state. I won't have anything to leave you." And I said, "Daddy, you're leaving me the best thing of all. This is quite a heritage I have."
Ladies and gentlemen, Eddie Jacobson's daughter, Eleanor Jacobson Borenstein, and Eddie Jacobson's granddaughter, Hazel Becker, and the grandson of President Harry S. Truman, Clifton Truman Daniel. Wow. Relationships matter. That is certainly the moral of the Truman Jacobson story. It's the moral of AIPAC's story as well. Eddie Jacobson was the U.S.-Israel relationship's first key contact. Could Eddie Jacobson have imagined that we would be sitting here today with 18,000 key contacts? Relationships and the willingness of individuals to take action, to stand up for what they believe is right, these are the pillars of our work. And this conference offers us the opportunity to build friendships, to renew ties, and to focus together on what we can achieve to make our world a better, safer place. Thank you. I am tremendously grateful to all of you who have given me the opportunity to serve as AIPAC president. And thank you. And for the continued honor to work with you to ensure the strength of the U.S.-Israel bond. We are fortunate that we have an incredible team to lead us, and I want to personally thank AIPAC's professional staff, led by our incredibly talented CEO and Vice CEO, Howard Kaur and Richard Fishman. To my predecessor and dear friend, Michael Kasson, and his wife, Shelley, thank you for your example, support, and constant friendship. To the entire AIPAC Board of Directors, I value your hard work and your sincere dedication. It is unmatched, and our ongoing partnership is something I truly treasure. Thank you. To my wife, Louise, I could not have done this without you. You have been with me on this journey every step of the way, and thank you for all your support and guidance and love. I love you. And to our children, Sarah, Jake, David, and Susanna, thank you for being my best cheering squad and your passion for our work. And for all your love and support. I am lucky that in AIPAC, I have found like-minded partners and lifelong friends. And we are all fortunate that one of these dear friends will lead AIPAC into the next chapter of our history. She is wise, always asking the right questions and having the sound judgment to deliver thoughtful answers. She is known for her kindness, respected for her insight, admired and trusted because she values the opinions and principles of others while always remaining true to who she is. How fortunate we are that AIPAC's next president is Lillian Pincus.
I've always been inspired by Israel's fourth Prime Minister, Golda Meir. Trust yourself, she said. Create the kind of self you will be happy to live with all your life. Make the most of yourself by fanning these tiny inner sparks of possibility into flames of achievement. Every one of us has the ability to make a difference. We have to believe in ourselves. We can do something, and that's what there are a lot of challenges out there. Some might look at those challenges and become pessimistic, but I have to tell you, when you're involved with AIPAC, I look at those challenges and I know the work we do really can make a difference. My parents were Holocaust survivors. When they came to this country, they started farming. In our home on the farm, the kitchen had a bay window, and everybody would sit around the kitchen table. And there was this one little radio that would sit on the table. And as a kid, all I knew was that the radio only spoke Yiddish because it was tuned to the Yiddish station, and it was always news about Israel. And so for me, the ties to Israel are deep, and they started early. My parents said of all the things that the Nazis took from them, the one thing they couldn't take was the things that they had learned. So I went to Brandeis, then went to Harvard for graduate school. I get hired at Temple Emmanuel to be the youth director. That's how I got here. I married into a family business. We have a nursery. I took over the landscape department during a pretty rocky time in the history of our business. It really was frightening because there's a lot of responsibility that was involved. A lot of families were counting on those paychecks. But like many challenges in life, it turns out to be one of your defining moments, one of the things that makes you stronger. And when I look back and I think, how is it that we were able to take the business from when it was really struggling and grow it? And I have to say, we really built a great team. And in many ways, it's similar to my experience at AIPAC. We can't accomplish the work we need to do by just having one or two strong people. We need a team of people. First, I started by attending meetings. And then I became the local AIPAC chair. I moved on and I became the political chair. And I got nominated to the board. And when you get on the board of directors of AIPAC, you work. You come to Washington 10 times a year. You're deeply involved in politics to support those candidates who support a strong U.S.-Israel relationship. We work with Democrats and we work with Republicans because the mission is really to create policy that bonds the United States and Israel together, that makes America stronger and Israel secure. And in order to do that, we need bipartisan support. I saw, through my own life experience, what happened to my parents because there wasn't a Jewish state to protect them. There wasn't a Jewish state to take them in. And what that means is we have to work to secure Israel. And now that I have a new grandbaby, it's even more meaningful. I know that when I walk out on that stage at Policy Conference to accept the role and responsibilities of AIPAC president, guiding me, I will have my parents on one shoulder and my granddaughter on the other.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome AIPAC President Lillian Pincus.
Thank you, Bobby, for that heartwarming and very kind introduction. Most importantly, thank you for the hard work and the example of leadership you set for every single one of us. I am incredibly grateful to be serving with you and such an extraordinary group of leaders on AIPAC's National Board of Directors. Thank you all. To the two gentlemen who lead AIPAC's professional staff, Howard Kaur and Richard Fishman. On behalf of AIPAC's National Board of Directors, I want to say how fortunate all of us feel to have your continued sound judgment and strong leadership. And to the entire AIPAC staff, it is so evident that your work is more than a job. Your passion and commitment to our mission makes us all a family. Family. It's important to me as it is to all of you. And through the years, the AIPAC Policy Conference has become a gathering place for my family, a kind of reunion. And I am grateful to have so much family with me here this morning, our own special delegation of 32. Where are you guys? to my husband, John, who is my partner in everything, including our shared commitment to this work, and to our children, Jared and Samantha, Aaron and Pamela, and my granddaughter, to my sisters, brothers, nieces, nephews, and cousins, especially my cousins who came all the way from Israel. Thank you for your love and support. Thank you. Where are you guys? Thank you. And to my AIPAC family, all 18,000 of you, including the more than 4,000 college students. Yay, where are you? From every state in our nation. Thank you all for bringing your commitment to our nation's capital this week. To all of you, I am deeply honored and humbled to accept the responsibility of AIPAC president. I am very much aware that I come into this position at a time of great challenge. Israel's neighborhood is literally disintegrating all around her. Iran, enriched and emboldened. Hezbollah and Hamas, rearming and re-aiming. International bodies ridiculing and rebuking the Jewish state. And here at home, we wrestle with a divisive and polarized political environment. But we gather in our nation's capital this week to say to those who threaten Israel, who may try to bend or break the alliance between these two great democracies, it will not happen. We come together to ensure that the alliance between the United States and Israel is forever. All right, but now, to attain this goal, we must shape American foreign policy in ways that strengthen America and secure Israel. And that rests on three pillars. First, we must work in a bipartisan manner. Second, we must grow the number of people involved in both pro-Israel politics and AIPAC. And third, we must continue to make the AIPAC family as diverse as America's family. Let's start with bipartisanship. I'm really not using the word bipartisan as some kind of platitude. It is fundamental to our ability to shape American foreign policy. Bipartisanship is the only way to ensure passage of legislation that secures the vital bond between the United States and Israel. That's how ideas become law. And since we don't know with any certainty who will win in any given election, we must be sure to have solid friendships with whoever wins. There are sound reasons for individuals, whether they see themselves as conservatives or progressives, to support the bilateral relationship between America and Israel. Israel earns that broad bipartisan support because Israel embodies the best of American values, a country which shares America's commitment to freedom, democracy, individual human rights, and a vision for a better world. So how do we ensure that everyone who emerges victorious after Election Day knows someone in the pro-Israel community who can help them broaden their understanding of Israel and deepen their own personal connection to the Jewish state? How do we ensure that we continue to impact the foreign policy conversation about Israel? Here's how we do it. We need your active involvement, and we need the active involvement of your political opposite. It may even be the person sitting right next to you. Our country has two political parties. Over the past decade, the issues that divide the parties has intensified. But one issue continues to serve as a bridge: support for Israel. Yet today, even that is being tested. You and I, we, together, we're the only antidote. Think about it. The fact that the person sitting next to you shares your commitment to a strong Israel, but may align completely differently on other issues. That political diversity, that is our strength. We need each other. That is the strength of AIPAC. We encourage everyone to develop relationships with our country's leaders, and we depend on a diversity of conversations, all leading toward the same goal: to keep America and Israel safe and strong. My friends, that is the power of bipartisanship. As Americans, how fortunate are we to live in a country that not only permits our involvement in politics, but actively encourages us to participate in the democratic process. Look at it this way. Politics is our pen with which we get to write the next chapter of our history. We can't afford the luxury of skepticism about our political system. It's the only one we've got. And too much, way too much, depends on our involvement. Did you know that more than half the members of Congress today were elected in just the last 8 years? This is just one measurement of the massive turnover in Congress. And it means we have to engage, educate, and build new friendships with hundreds of leaders all the time. After all, today's city councilwoman could very well be tomorrow's senator. We have to continually reach out to rising stars while working closely with those already holding public office. Simply put, to develop and nurture relationships with our country's leaders, we need more people engaged in pro-Israel politics. And it's not just about the numbers. I find very often people just don't know how to get started. You and I need to help them, to show them how. I'm often asked how John and I first connected with AIPAC. It was really quite simple. Friends of ours, Susan and Alan Kramer, invited us to attend an AIPAC parlor meeting with them. And that was all it took. Once I understood how AIPAC works, a light turned on for me. I saw how one individual, someone like me, someone like you, can participate and make a difference in strengthening the U.S.-Israel relationship. And that is the experience of most people who care about Israel. Once they understand how AIPAC works to secure the friendship between the United States and Israel, all they really want to know is, how can I help? Take a moment. Think about the person who introduced you to AIPAC. Now, think about the individuals who should be joining you today but aren't. Name them in your mind. You can be their Susan. You can be their Alan. We need every single one of them with us. During my time as president, I want to work with you to grow the number of pro-Israel Americans engaged in our work so we can ensure we are effective for decades to come. But it's not just about the numbers. America is changing, and the pro-Israel community in America needs to continue to change with it. Our movement needs the variety of life experiences, history, and backgrounds to ensure that multiple meaningful conversations are taking place with our country's leaders. We know this strengthens our community and our work. Case in point, almost 10 years ago, AIPAC's Education Foundation led the first trip to Israel for pro-Israel Christian activists. Participants in that trip returned to their hometowns, inspired to do everything possible to strengthen their community's involvement in pro-Israel politics. One of those activists, John Bueller, an engineer from Huntsville, Alabama, founded 2 statewide pro-Israel Christian organizations. He built strong friendships with key legislators, and he forged deeper ties with the Alabama Jewish community. Over the past few years, John had become increasingly motivated as a pro-Israel Christian to do something about the growth of the anti-Israel boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement known as BDS. Having already built relationships, John spoke to his friends in the state legislature. With John leading the way, legislators and key members of both the Jewish and Christian communities came together. Last month, Alabama's legislature unanimously condemned the BDS movement and reaffirmed Alabama's support for the one and only Jewish state. That's what happens when we work together. That's what happens when leaders like John Bueller are part of the AIPAC family. We need more leaders like John Bueller. We've made a strong start, but it's still just a start. Our goal is not only to fill arenas. Our goal is to fill our country with men and women who know and understand as we do that a strong Israel means a strong United States of America and a safer world for everyone. To grow our movement and meet the challenges ahead, each one of us needs to make our own commitment. We need to take the energy of this weekend and bring it back to our home communities. By working in a bipartisan manner, by growing AIPAC and pro-Israel politics, and by making sure AIPAC continues to reflect the rich diversity of this great country, we will ensure that we don't leave the future to chance. Years ago, during my first AIPAC policy conference, there was a young man sitting next to me. I would say he was in his early 20s. I looked over and I noticed tears were streaming down his face. So I turned to him and asked, "Are you all right?" He introduced himself. He didn't have to tell me where he was from. I could hear his Israeli accent when he spoke. He said, "Yes, yes, I'm okay. I just never imagined this. I just never imagined this." My friends, he never imagined so much love and support for Israel in one room. You see, he said, I know, it's amazing. Sometimes in Israel, it feels as if we're all alone. That stayed with me. It motivated me further to want to help ensure that our brothers and sisters would never be isolated or alone. Not now, not ever. And so, when sirens wail in the towns of southern Israel, as they still too often do, the people of those communities know they are not alone. You and I work with our elected leaders in Congress and the administration to fund the missile defense systems that keep them safe. And when those same citizens hear sounds coming from beneath the ground, you and I work with our elected leaders in the administration and Congress to fund the technologies that can detect and destroy those terrorist tunnels. When Israel is faced with its enemies' growing arsenals, you and I work with our elected leaders in the administration and Congress to secure the funding needed to maintain Israel's qualitative military edge. And when children, mothers and fathers are murdered, when an American veteran is murdered, when a teenager, a young man filled with promise, who sat in the audience with us just last year, when they are murdered, we make our voices heard. We send a clear message that America stands by Israel, that the incitement and murder of Israelis must stop. Time and again, you and I respond with action. Action that says clearly and without hesitation, Israel, you are not alone. On Tuesday, that's tomorrow, we will go to Capitol Hill and we will advocate for a strong U.S.-Israel friendship, for a safe and secure Israel, because justice demands no less, because Israel makes the world a better place, and because America and Israel, like all of us here together, are always stronger together. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
There's one thing I tell all the members when you leave the country, it's not about Republicans or Democrats, you're Americans first. And that's the relationship that America has with Israel. It's not partisan, it's a unique relationship.
The relationship between Israel and the United States is not based upon partisan politics. This is about a sense of unity between our two countries and an acknowledgement of the commonality of our values.
Congress is a very human business, and to get things done, you need people to work together. So to be here in a foreign country to us, where we're just Americans, I think was really helpful.
Tom MacArthur and I had a chance to talk. It's just remarkable because we're both New Jersey, the size of Israel, and we're trying to say, how would we react if we were under constant pressure of being attacked? That takes a toll.
For Republicans and Democrats to walk together and listen to people together and then share with each other their impressions, their feelings, is so valuable. What we share in common will only become more and more evident despite our diversity.
I think we need to both get baptized at the same time, and maybe we can come out of the River Jordan with a whole new perspective on working together.
When you had two groups of folks that are ideologically opposed on most issues, to stand shoulder to shoulder and to look at the risks that Israel faces, it gives us all a chance to link arms and become stronger in our support for the state of Israel and for the Israeli people.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome former CNN anchor Frank Sesno.
Well, good morning, everybody. It's very nice to wake up with 18,000 friends in the middle of Washington, D.C. I have had the great privilege of joining AIPAC for several years now in several stimulating discussions. And while the topics of those discussions have varied, there has been one thread that has remained the same, and that is this commitment to bipartisanship when it comes to this issue. And this is what we're going to discuss and see and visit this morning. So in that spirit, I'd like to welcome our next two guests to the policy conference stage, two leaders in Congress who exemplify what it means to stand on this issue together and across party lines. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming House Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy and House Democratic Whip Steny Hoyer. Well, gentlemen, good morning and welcome to the rotating stage.
Good morning.
So as we've just seen in this video, both of you participated in the mission to Israel. This is not your first time doing it. I spoke in the introductions about the sense of bipartisanship. Tell us a little bit about your own story, what motivated you to travel to Israel and take the freshman class with you, what you get out of these trips. Congressman Hoyer?
Well, first of all, the first time I went to Israel was in 1976. My wife was still alive, and we had an extraordinary experience for 7 days. An experience that changed my life, changed my perspective, and I've been back 13 times since, in every decade.
So 1976 till now, a long time. What do you get out of this?
Well, I get something new out of it every time I go. And first of all, I tell people I get a revival out of it. I get a reinvigoration of my principles and of my commitment and how critically important the relationship between Israel and the United States is, and how we need to work very hard to make sure that it remains A, a bipartisan issue, and B, effectively sending a message to the world that Israel's survival and security is a critical issue for the United States of America.
What do you get out of it?
Well, the first time I ever went, I wasn't in Congress. I was in the State Assembly, and we went on a bipartisan basis. And I knew my love for Israel, but it created a unique bond. You don't understand the size or the proximity or the threats or the challenges of what they're able to overcome. And it's such an emotional time, just that 1 week you're there. So we did something much different. When I became majority leader, I went down to Steny on the floor, and we actually talked very often. I said, why don't we do something different this year? Why don't we do it when we go overlap? Because when you leave this country, you're an American first. And you know the most unique thing? So Stinney agreed right away. That's a great idea. Let's spend a couple days, Republicans and Democrats together while we're there. And you know where we went? We broke bread, we had lunch, but we went and stood before the Iron Dome, looking down to Gaza. And when you think, a lot of these are bipartisan votes of what we support, but there's a bond there that breaks parties, that understands Israel is our greatest ally. And if we are not supportive, where does that break the world?
We don't hear a lot about bipartisanship these days in this town. Is this the real deal on this issue?
Well, first of all, I think there's more than you hear about, because confrontation is what you hear about. But having said that, Israel is unique. And the commitment to Israel, I think, is unique, and it bonds both Republicans and Democrats in common cause. And I think that that was true yesterday, it's true today, and will be true tomorrow.
Well, you just watch who the speakers are all coming. You've got everybody coming here on every side of the aisle, and I don't know of any other organization that can do that. But they all have the same mission, too, that we know the bond between Israel and America has to be the strongest. Okay. And if it's not, we'll lose.
Let's dig in here for a few minutes. This is a region that is on fire. Across the region, it is more tumultuous, more unstable, more violent, more unpredictable than we have seen in many, many years. That being the case, what do each of you see as perhaps the most serious threat facing the region, and where do you see the Israeli-U.S. relationship addressing that?
Well, I think Iran is clearly the number one threat that exists. They clearly have a policy to impose hegemony on the region. They clearly want to be a power of which people are afraid. And clearly one of our major responsibilities, Israel's and the United States working together, is to assure that Iran, A, never gets a nuclear weapon. We've had controversy about that, but that commitment needs to remain strong. Vice President Biden talked about it last night. That needs to be our number one focus. It is interesting, however, in this time, it's a relatively unique time that the surrounding community now is having its own internal issues and are confronting one another as much as they're confronting Israel. And that, I think, is a change in circumstances, but it is a destabilizing effort in the Middle East, very dangerous.
Well, it's no doubt Iran, using their resources now to fund terrorism. They feel a new empowerment within the region. What we need to do is make sure our relationship is not only close, but that we work closely together, from cybersecurity to a military advantage. When Israel and America are strong, the world is more peaceful and the world is more stable. And we need to have a responsibility. When there is question and doubt, when Iran feels they have an advantage, as you notice, the world becomes destabilizing.
Let me, we have time for just one more question.
Very briefly,
quickly, please.
One of the things that I think is a reality that the surrounding world needs to know, the IDF and the Department of Defense are cooperating as closely today as they ever have. That needs to continue and to be expanded.
Very, very quickly here, we only have a couple of minutes left. If that, I want to ask you both, the U.S. and the Israeli governments are trying to wrap up this 10-year agreement, this memorandum of understanding to provide Israel security guarantees and support over the next decade. How will Congress respond to these conversations?
Well, Congress' responsibility would be to appropriate the money. And I will tell you from a bipartisan basis, there is more commitment, especially after the Iran agreement. Let's make a longer agreement here, a stronger agreement where there is no doubt Israel.
Stronger?
Yes.
Frank, our premise has been for a long period of time now that our investment in Israel is an investment in our security. That premise needs to be maintained. Hopefully, we will achieve a new memorandum of understanding in the short term. And again, indicate the bipartisan consensus that we have in defense of Israel. That is an important message to send to the Middle East
and what is
and to the world.
When do you think this will happen?
Sooner rather than better, and we need to make sure that Israel has what it needs to defend itself, remain secure and sovereign.
When you talk about this agreement, this arrangement, what is the most important component of it besides longer and stronger?
To me, is innovation and advantage. When Israel is strong, they will not be challenged. When they know the bond with America is strong, the world is safer. So if you want peace in the Middle East, the relationship with America and Israel has to be at its strongest and tightest, and cooperation beyond all.
Gentlemen, our time is up. I would say, however, that it is very encouraging to see that there is conversation across the aisle, and there is a place, an important place, where bipartisanship.
Not only conversation, but cooperation.
Conversation and cooperation.
And I will tell you this. The issue with Israel and America brings more bipartisan inside Congress. So it's only a helpful ability that we can work together. We stand on the stage together, and we travel to Israel together.
Gentlemen, Congressman, thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
My team's goal is to enable me to take a taxi on my own.
He lost all of his fingers to frostbite. Now, being such a cool guy that he is, he likes to also ride bikes.
We're creating musical instruments for kids with CP.
המזרון שמתחת למזרון שלו יתנפח, ימדוד מה המשקל וירד, ככה שבזמן שזה לא פעיל זה לא יורגש.
It's called Tikkun Olam Makers. Under the value of Tikkun Olam, of repairing the world, it's working together in order to really impact humanity.
We run makeathons, which are marathons of making, that brings technology people and people that understand the need in order to develop solutions.
Tom emanated from a bold vision for Israel and the Jewish people to make a significant and distinctly Israeli contribution to 250 million people within a decade. And the strategy to realize Tom was by taking the Israeli energy, the startup nation mentality and approach and outlook of innovation and creativity, and to channel them to deal with neglected social problems.
They're having difficulties to move their hands and to use instruments such as piano and guitar, and we want to give them the ability to play music by themselves.
He realized that he can't reach the braking lever anymore.
Some taxis won't take me because it's very hard for them to lift the wheelchair into their trunk.
In here, we have 120 dedicated people from around the world, Jews and Arabs, coming together with just one purpose, which is to do good.
But the magic of Tom happens when the people of talent, engineers, programmers, product designers, bring their talent and solve the need of one person with a disability.
Our goal is to end these 72 hours with a working prototype. What we are doing here is basically the equivalent of 6 months of development condensed into 3 days.
האמת, כל כך עסוקים בעבודה, כאילו, אתה תראה את זה כמו כוורת דבורים.
It's one motor that does two things. It brings in the chair to the trunk and folds the leg.
Going to make a wearable instrument where they can tap themselves and just touch. It will play music.
אדם עולה, מופעל לחץ על המזרון, הלחץ בבקר עולה, הוא מחשב את ההפרש כחצי מה שדיברנו.
We added a lever so that he can just press down with the bottom of his hand, and then he can brake the bicycle.
That's the thing when you have the most advanced technology and people full with chutzpah putting it to use. They don't stop, they just walk until there is a solution.
Against the backdrop of everything that's happening around the world, we're so proud of the fact that TOM is a platform for coexistence, for bringing people of all religions and many cultures to work together.
I'm not doing it for myself. I'm old. I'm doing it for the next generation.
We're just scratching the surface so far. In my vision, what TED is for inspirational talks, TOM is going to be for global tikkun olam.
It gives us a global reach and a way to really bring people from all corners of the world to help repair the world. That's tikkun olam.
Ladies and gentlemen, Gidi Greenstein and Stel Pinasov. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Democratic presidential candidate Hillary Clinton.
Thank you so much. It is wonderful to be here and see so many friends. I've spoken at a lot of AIPAC conferences in the past, but this has to be one of the biggest yet. And there are so many young people here, thousands of college students from hundreds of campuses around the country. I think we should all give them a hand for being here and beginning their commitment to this important cause. You will keep the U.S.-Israel relationship going strong. You know, as a senator from New York and Secretary of State, I've had the privilege of working closely with AIPAC members to strengthen and deepen America's ties with Israel. Now, we may not have always agreed on every detail, but we've always shared an unwavering, unshakable commitment to our alliance and to Israel's future as a secure and democratic homeland for the Jewish people. And your support helped us expand security and intelligence cooperation, develop the Iron Dome missile defense system, build a global coalition to impose the toughest sanctions in history on Iran, and so much more. Since my first visit to Israel 35 years ago, I've returned many times and made many friends. I've worked with and learned from some of Israel's great leaders, although I don't think Yitzhak Rabin ever forgave me for banishing him to the White House balcony when he wanted to smoke. Now I'm here as a candidate for president, and I know that all of you understand what's at stake in this election. Our next president will walk into the Oval Office next January and immediately face a world of both perils we must meet with strength and skill, and opportunities we must seize and build on. The next president will sit down at that desk and start making decisions that will affect both the lives and livelihoods of every American and the security of our friends around the world. So we have to get this right. As AIPAC members, you understand that while the turmoil of the Middle East presents enormous challenge and complexity, walking away is not an option. Candidates for president who think the United States can outsource Middle East security to dictators, or that America no longer has vital national interests at stake in this region, are dangerously wrong. It would be a serious mistake for the United States to abandon our responsibilities or cede the mantle of leadership for global peace and security to anyone else. As we gather here, three evolving threats: Iran's continued aggression, a rising tide of extremism across a wide arc of instability, and the growing effort to delegitimize Israel on the world stage, are converging to make the U.S.-Israel alliance more indispensable than ever. We have to combat all these trends with even more intense security and diplomatic cooperation. The United States and Israel must be closer than ever, stronger than ever, and more determined than ever to prevail against our common adversaries and to advance our shared values. This is especially true at a time when Israel faces brutal terrorist stabbings, shootings, and vehicle attacks at home. Parents worry about letting their children walk down the street. Families live in fear. Just a few weeks ago, a young American veteran and West Point graduate named Taylor Force was murdered by a Palestinian terrorist near the Jaffa port. These attacks must end immediately, and Palestinian leaders need to stop inciting violence, stop celebrating terrorists as martyrs, and stop paying rewards to their families. Because we understand the threats Israel faces, we know we can never take for granted the strength of our alliance or the success of our efforts. Today, Americans and Israelis face momentous choices that will shape the future of our relationship and of both our nations. The first choice is this: are we prepared to take the U.S.-Israel alliance to the next level? This relationship has always been stronger and deeper than the headlines might lead you to believe. Our work together to develop the Iron Dome saved many Israeli lives when Hamas rockets began to fly. I saw its effectiveness firsthand in 2012 when I worked with Prime Minister Netanyahu to negotiate a ceasefire in Gaza. And if I'm fortunate enough to be elected president, the United States will reaffirm we have a strong and enduring national interest in Israel's security. And we will never allow Israel's adversaries to think a wedge can be driven between us. When we have differences, as any friends do, we will work to resolve them quickly and respectfully. We will also be clear that the United States has an enduring interest in and commitment to a more peaceful, more stable, more secure Middle East. And we will step up our efforts to achieve that outcome. Indeed, at a time of unprecedented chaos and conflict in the region, America needs an Israel strong enough to deter and defend against its enemies, strong enough to work with us to tackle shared challenges, and strong enough to take bold steps in the pursuit of peace. That's why I believe we must take our alliance to the next level. I hope a new 10-year defense memorandum of understanding is concluded as soon as possible to meet Israel's security needs far into the future. That will also send a clear message to Israel's enemies that the United States and Israel stand together, united. It's also why, as president, I will make a firm commitment to ensure Israel maintains its qualitative military edge. The United States should provide Israel with the most sophisticated defense technology so it can deter and stop any threats. That includes bolstering Israeli missile defenses with new systems like the Arrow 3 and David Sling. And we should work together to develop better tunnel detection technology to prevent arms smuggling, kidnapping, and terrorist attacks. One of the first things I'll do in office is invite the Israeli Prime Minister to visit the White House. And I will send a delegation from the Pentagon and the Joint Chiefs to Israel for early consultations. Let's also expand our collaboration beyond security. Together, we can build an even more vibrant culture of innovation that tightens the links between Silicon Valley and Israeli tech companies and entrepreneurs. There is much Americans can learn from Israel, from cybersecurity to energy security to water security, and just on an everyday people-to-people level. And it's especially important to continue fostering relationships between American and Israeli young people who may not always remember our shared past. They are the future of our relationship, and we have to do more to promote that. Many of the young people here today are on the front lines of the battle to oppose the alarming boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement known as BDS. Particularly at a time when anti-Semitism is on the rise across the world, especially in Europe, we must repudiate all efforts to malign, isolate, and undermine Israel and the Jewish people. I've been sounding the alarm for a while now. As I wrote last year in a letter to the heads of major American Jewish organizations, we have to be united in fighting back against BDS. Many of its proponents have demonized Israeli scientists and intellectuals, even students. To all the college students who may have encountered this on campus, I hope you stay strong. Keep speaking out. Don't let anyone silence you, bully you, or try to shut down debate, especially in places of learning like colleges and universities. Anti-Semitism has no place in any civilized society, not in America, not in Europe, not anywhere. Now, all of this work, defending Israel's legitimacy, expanding security and economic ties, taking our alliance to the next level, depends on electing a president with a deep personal commitment to Israel's future as a secure, democratic Jewish state and to America's responsibilities as a global leader. Tonight, you'll hear from candidates with very different visions of American leadership in the region and around the world. You'll get a glimpse of a potential U.S. foreign policy that would insult our allies, not engage them, and embolden our adversaries, not defeat them. For the security of Israel and the world, we need America to remain a respected global leader, committed to defending and advancing the international order, an America able to block efforts to isolate or attack Israel. The alternative is unthinkable. Yes, we need steady hands, not a president who says he's neutral on Monday, pro-Israel on Tuesday, and who knows what on Wednesday, because everything's negotiable. Well, my friends, Israel's security is non-negotiable. I have sat in Israeli hospital rooms, holding the hands of men and women whose bodies and lives were torn apart by terrorist bombs. I've listened to doctors describe the shrapnel left in a leg, an arm, or even a head. That's why I feel so strongly that America can't ever be neutral when it comes to Israel's security or survival. We can't be neutral when rockets rain down on residential neighborhoods, when civilians are stabbed in the street, when suicide bombers target the innocent, some things aren't negotiable. And anyone who doesn't understand that has no business being our president. The second choice we face is whether we will have the strength and commitment to confront the adversaries that threaten us, especially Iran. For many years, we've all been rightly focused on the existential danger of Iran acquiring a nuclear weapon. After all, this remains an extremist regime that threatens to annihilate Israel. That's why I led the diplomacy to impose crippling sanctions and force Iran to the negotiating table, and why I ultimately supported the agreement that has put a lid on its nuclear program. Today, Iran's enriched uranium is all but gone. Thousands of centrifuges have stopped spinning. Iran's potential breakout time has increased, and new verification measures are in place to help us deter and detect any cheating. I really believe the United States, Israel, and the world are safer as a result. But still, as I laid out in a speech at the Brookings Institution last year, it's not good enough to trust and verify. Our approach must be distrust and verify. This deal must come with vigorous enforcement, strong monitoring, clear consequences for any violations, and a broader strategy to confront Iran's aggression across the region. We cannot forget that Tehran's fingerprints are on nearly every conflict across the Middle East, from Syria to Lebanon to Yemen. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps and its proxies are attempting to establish a position on the Golan from which to threaten Israel, and they continue to fund Palestinian terrorists. In Lebanon, Hezbollah is amassing an arsenal of increasingly sophisticated rockets and artillery that well may be able to hit every city in Israel. Tonight you will hear a lot of rhetoric from the other candidates about Iran, but there's a big difference between talking about holding Tehran accountable and actually doing it. Our next president has to be able to hold together our global coalition and impose real consequences for even the smallest violations of this agreement. We must maintain the legal and diplomatic architecture to turn all the sanctions back on if needed. If I'm elected, the leaders of Iran will have no doubt that if we see any indication that they are violating their commitments not to seek, develop, or acquire nuclear weapons, the United States will act to stop it, and that we will do so with force if necessary. Iranian provocations like the recent ballistic missile tests also are unacceptable and should be answered firmly and quickly, including with more sanctions. Those missiles were stamped with words declaring, and I quote, "Israel should be wiped from the pages of history." We know they could reach Israel or hit the tens of thousands of American troops stationed in the Middle East. This is a serious danger, and it demands a serious response. The United States must also continue to enforce existing sanctions and impose additional sanctions as needed on Iran and the Revolutionary Guard for their sponsorship of terrorism, illegal arms transfers, human rights violations, and other illicit behaviors like cyber attacks. We should continue to demand the safe return of Robert Levinson and all American citizens unjustly held in Iranian prisons. And we must work closely with Israel and other partners to cut off the flow of money and arms from Iran to Hezbollah. If the Arab League can designate all of Hezbollah as a terrorist organization, surely it is time for our friends in Europe and the rest of the international community to do so as well, and to do that now. At the same time, America should always stand with those voices inside Iran calling for more openness. Now look, we know the Supreme Leader still calls the shots, and that the hardliners are intent on keeping their grip on power. But the Iranian people themselves deserve a better future, and they are trying to make their voices heard. They should know that America is not their enemy. They should know we will support their efforts to bring positive change to Iran. Now, of course, Iran is not the only threat we in Israel face. The United States and Israel also have to stand together against the threat from ISIS and other radical jihadists. An ISIS affiliate in the Sinai is reportedly stepping up attempts to make inroads in Gaza and partner with Hamas. On Saturday, a number of Israelis and other foreigners were injured or killed in a bombing in Istanbul that may well be linked to ISIS. Two of the dead are U.S.-Israeli dual nationals. This is a threat that knows no borders. That's why I've laid out a plan to take the fight to ISIS from the air, on the ground with local forces, and online where they recruit and inspire. Our goal cannot be to contain ISIS. We must defeat ISIS. And here is a third choice. Will we keep working toward a negotiated peace, or lose forever the goal of 2 states for 2 peoples? Despite many setbacks, I remain convinced that peace with security is possible, and that it is the only way to guarantee Israel's long-term survival as a strong Jewish and democratic state. It may be difficult to imagine progress in this current climate, when many Israelis doubt that a willing and capable partner for peace even exists. But inaction cannot be an option. Israelis deserve a secure homeland for the Jewish people. Palestinians should be able to govern themselves in their own state, in peace and dignity, and only a negotiated 2-state agreement can provide those outcomes. If we look at the broader regional context, converging interests between Israel and key Arab states could make it possible to promote progress on the Israeli-Palestinian issue. Israelis and Palestinians could contribute toward greater cooperation between Israel and Arabs. I know how hard all of this is. I remember what it took just to convene Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Abbas for the 3 sessions of direct face-to-face peace talks in 2010 that I presided over. But Israelis and Palestinians cannot give up on the hope of peace. That will only make it harder later. All of us need to look for opportunities to create the conditions for progress including by taking positive actions that can rebuild trust, like the recent constructive meetings between the Israeli and Palestinian finance ministers aiming to help bolster the Palestinian economy, or the daily on-the-ground security cooperation between Israel and the Palestinian Authority. But at the same time, all of us must condemn actions that set back the cause of peace. Terrorism should never be encouraged or celebrated, and children should not be taught to hate in schools. That poisons the future. Everyone has to do their part by avoiding damaging actions, including with respect to settlements. Now, America has an important role to play in supporting peace efforts. And as president, I would continue the pursuit of direct negotiations. And let me be clear, I would vigorously oppose any attempt by outside parties to impose a solution, including by the UN Security Council. There is one more choice that we face together, and in some ways, it may be the most important of all. Will we, as Americans and as Israelis, stay true to the shared democratic values that have always been at the heart of our relationship? We are both nations built by immigrants and exiles, seeking to live and worship in freedom, nations built on principles of equality, tolerance, and pluralism. At our best, both Israel and America are seen as a light unto the nations because of those values. This is the real foundation of our alliance, and I think it's why so many Americans feel such a deep emotional connection with Israel. I know that I do. And it's why we cannot be neutral about Israel and Israel's future, because in Israel's story, we see our own, and the story of all people who struggle for freedom and self-determination. There's so many examples. You know, we look at the Pride Parade in Tel Aviv, one of the biggest and most prominent in the world. And we marvel that such a bastion of liberty exists in a region so plagued by intolerance. We see the vigorous, even raucous debate in Israeli politics and feel right at home. And of course, some of us remember a woman, Golda Meir, leading Israel's government decades ago and wonder what's taking us so long here in America. But we cannot rest on what previous generations have accomplished. Every generation has to renew our values, and yes, even fight for them. Today, Americans and Israelis face currents of intolerance and extremism that threaten the moral foundations of our societies. Now, in a democracy, we're going to have differences. But what Americans are hearing on the campaign trail this year is something else entirely. Encouraging violence, playing coy with white supremacists, calling for 12 million immigrants to be rounded up and deported, demanding we turn away refugees because of their religion, and proposing a ban on all Muslims entering the United States. Now, we've had dark chapters in our history before. We remember the nearly 1,000 Jews aboard the St. Louis who were refused entry in 1939 and sent back to Europe. But America should be better than this, And I believe it's our responsibility as citizens to say so. If you see bigotry, oppose it. If you see violence, condemn it. If you see a bully, stand up to him. On Wednesday evening, Jews around the world will celebrate the festival of Purim, and children will learn the story of Esther, who refused to stay silent in the face of evil. It wasn't easy. She had a good life, and by speaking out, she risked everything. But as Mordecai reminded her, we all have an obligation to do our part when danger gathers, and those of us with power or influence have a special responsibility to do what's right. As Elie Wiesel said when accepting the Nobel Peace Prize, neutrality helps the oppressor, never the victim. Silence encourages the tormentor, never the tormented. So, my friends, let us never be neutral or silent in the face of bigotry. Together, let's defend the shared values that already make America and Israel great. Let us do the hard work necessary to keep building our friendship and reach out to the next generation of Americans and Israelis so the bonds between our nations grow even deeper and stronger. We are stronger together, and if we face the future side by side, I know for both Israel and America, our best days are still ahead. Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our morning program. Please turn your attention to the screens for an important programming update.